So I'm going to start the painting by applying a wash of clear water in the sky area. I'm going to use cobalt blue and I want the sky to be very simple, so we're just going to do a simple gradient sky. I'm going to keep it pretty light because we have a lot of colors and darker tones at the foreground. Before we paint the mountains, we want to make sure that the sky is completely dry. Okay, now that the sky is dry, we can start painting the mountain. I've already made a video on how to paint mountains, so there's no correct way of doing this. You don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing, but you just have to make sure you create a lot of negative space for the snow and focus on your light and shadow. This tone that I'm using for the mountain has to be obviously slightly darker than the sky tone that we used. Okay, now for the mountain in front of it, we're going to use a darker blue. So you can see how I'm using three shades. The sky is the lightest, and then the mountain at the back is slightly darker, and this foreground mountain is going to be the darkest shade. So here I want the mountain to be slightly gradient. I don't want it to be exactly one color, so I'm going to make it a little dark at the top and slightly lighter at the bottom by adding more water to it. You have to be quick, guys, because if this dries in between, then you will be left with patchy areas and you don't want that. So I'm actually working pretty quick. Now our mountain is already wet. I'm just adding slightly more darker tones. I have less water and more color in my brush, and because the mountain is still wet, I have the liberty to play around. Now I'm going to add Hooker's green to the blue mix, and I'm going to create a greenish blue tone. And you can use any green, honestly, guys. I keep saying that. Don't say that, oh, I can't make this painting because I don't have this particular green. You'll come up with a unique painting of your own. So here I've created a greenish blue mix, and notice that the mountain is still wet, okay? Even if it's dry, it's fine. You'll get a wet on dry effect. But here you can see, because the mountain is wet, it is softly blending into the mountain. And a big mistake that people usually do here is that they put too much water into their brush. So what happens is that the water spreads uncontrollably, and you don't want that. So here I have very thick color and less water in my brush, so the water is not spreading so much. Now I'm going to add a few shapes of these pine trees at the background. Alright, now we're going to add the foreground. So here the background is completely dry. We don't want any colors to bleed in it. So whenever I do the foliage, the grassland, I always apply a wash of yellow and then on top of that I put green. The reason is because green is transparent and the yellow shows beneath it and it adds this glow to the grassland. And you don't want it to be completely green. You want a few shades of yellow here and there. So I think this is a very good way of painting grasslands. Okay, now that my yellow is still wet, I'm going to start adding green tones in it. If your yellow has completely dried, you can wait for some time and apply water on top of it, but make sure you do a very light stroke and don't put too much water, just a glaze. So now slowly I'll start adding darker tones to it. I'll try to add more dark towards the foreground the closer you come to the painting, and further off we want it to be slightly lighter. And at this point you want to make sure that you're suggesting the shape of the grassland. You want it to be slightly tilted. You don't want a flat surface, okay? So where you can see the path in between, I'm adding a little bit of shape so that it shows a curve. Now we'll slowly start adding dark tones. To make your green even more dark, you might want to add blue and a little bit of brown, any brown that you're using, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and try to make that green a little more darker. Here I'm taking my rigger brush and I'm suggesting grass. You can see the rigger brush is very thin, very pointy, and actually my grassland is still wet, so it's sort of blending into it. You can do this as much as you want it, to be honest, but you want the taller grass to be towards you and the shorter grass to be slightly far off. Okay, now the favorite part, let's draw some pine trees. So here I'm using my thin brush, my rigger brush for it. You can use a very thin pointed round brush. So first I'm going to create a vertical line to create the shape of my pine tree. And now you can see that I am flicking the leaves outwards. You don't want it to be a block. So I'm flicking the leaf outward and I'm adding leaves at the bottom. So one line you flick outward and you add a few lines towards that shape to suggest leaves coming out of that branch. So you want to take your own time to do this. You don't want to rush it, guys. I mean, that is the beauty of painting. Just get engrossed in the moment, let it mesmerize you, and just do this very slowly, patiently, and you will be amazed at the kind of creations that you're able to create. One suggestion I want to give here is when you are pointing the leaf outward, you want to make sure that the leaves at the bottom also are in that same direction. Don't make it vertically 90 degrees straight down, okay, because that's going to look very awkward. So basically the leaves are going to fall and follow the shape of the stem. So it's going to be slightly like commas. So the color that I've used for this pine tree is, again, I've mixed my green with blue and brown and I've created a very velvety dark green mix. You can also use black if you're a beginner, do that, but try to do color mixing and make your own shades, because by now you should know it. The lesser colors you use, guys, the more liberating it's going to be. You don't need a lot of colors to paint, you just need a few tubes. If you can see here, I've just used green, blue, brown and yellow, that's it, and we've come up with such a beautiful painting. So try to do color mixing and create a thick mix by using the colors you already have. Okay, now that I've shown you how to make this tree, I'm going to make another tree next to it. I'll show you where this is going to settle. So I'm going to make the vertical line, and I want you to do this on your own, okay? Because the point of me putting out these tutorials is for you to get out the inner artist. So I don't teach you exactly everything because I want you to do it on your own and have that confidence कि हाँ मैं ये कर सकती हूँ या मैं कर सकता हूँ. So just take this as guidance, and I'm gonna see you in a few seconds. Okay, so now I finished the second tree. You can see this as a reference. It's slightly bigger than that. You can make it as big or small as you want to. Now I'm going to add a few more pine trees to the left hand side of the painting. It's time to add some life to the painting. We're going to add white flowers which are going to stand out very beautifully against the dark background. So here I'm using Chinese white watercolor paint. It is pretty opaque, it is pretty thick. You can even use acrylic paint if you want to. So here I'm pressing it with the brush and dragging it down. Pressing the brush and dragging it towards the center. So you have a very cute flower shape that is happening. ज़्यादा effort भी नहीं देना है. So you press down, उससे circle बन जाएगा and you drag it towards the center. Alright guys, my painting is done. I'm happy with it and it looks really beautiful guys, and it is so loose and it is so airy. I really like this painting and I hope you enjoy painting this too. Please share your work with me on my Instagram handle and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.